All right, Glenn, welcome to the Campfire Sessions.
Well, thanks. Appreciate being called to around the campfire.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's a little cold, so we're looking at warmer weather behind me, but it is what it is. Actually, I'm just getting back from a cold weather camping trip myself, and I just happened to take this amazing book right here with me. I really appreciate it. It's been a very good read so far.
Well, glad you're enjoying it.
And actually, I've come across a really powerful quote that I think helps a lot of people when they see it in text is this idea around failure. We all embrace it, we all have to experience it, but there's an opportunity to learn from it. There's an opportunity to not look at it in a negative light. And, I picked up a lot of those themes throughout your book so far as lightening the load really helps to change perspective.
Well, and that was kind of the premise of the book is, I spent the last 50 years lightening the load of my backpack for going backpacking. And I realized that some of the lessons I learned along the way had, greater applicability, kind of they could be applied to other areas of life also. So that's kind of the premise of the book, basically.
That's where wilderness meditation comes in with what I do is there's so many things out there within the outdoor space that we love to do because there's that tagline of fun, the tagline of adventure that goes with it. But if we were to face those same principles in the real world, we'd probably shy away, sit still, not do anything because it doesn't feel like fun.
Yeah, and even I think in the wilderness, I mean, there's that fun adventure element, certainly, but there's also some unknown. I mean, you plan for your anticipated conditions. I mean, you just shared you took your heater because it was going to be really cold when you were just out there and you were out ice fishing. But, anytime you're in wilderness, you're in an environment you don't completely control all the variables. And so you have to rely on your experience and equipment that you brought to deal with whatever shows up. And that's good training for, I think, the rest of life too. You can't always control what happens. You can just control how you respond to it. So um, I think time in wilderness is a good training for the rest of life.
It really is when you get out there and you start looking at the philosophy that you live by. You examine those core values that you have in your life that's propelling you. You get to really challenge those things with your hands, with your eyes, because out in nature, even though there's the unknown moments, there's also the idea or the reality that there's no story going on. It's just literally you trekking along and trying your skills and figuring out how to solve the problems that may come up along the line.
Well, and the other great thing I enjoy about wilderness is um, the lack of distraction. I mean, we are so um, I don't know if you've read The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter,
I think I've skimmed through some of that.
but one of his contentions is, we've done too good a job of killing boredom in our lives. There's always something to look at on our phone, something to listen to, um, something to watch. And so we're just bombarded with stimuli when we're in, our regular life. And that makes it too easy to ignore um, ignore things we should be thinking about or just have some, like you said, meditative time in wilderness. That's the great thing about getting out of cell service is, you've got nothing to distract you. It's just you and your hands and whatever you're doing. It gives you plenty of time to think, which is something that's rare for most of us in everyday life.
I think back along my journey, and that's a very true statement because it was a matter of just chasing the next shiny thing or whatever it is you could fill your time with. And then, I hit this wall in my life where everything absolutely changed. And all of a sudden, it was about embracing the simplicity of life. the new skills and things that come into it that you're introduced to. But realizing that everything along the way, all the skills you're still using and all the new ones that you're picking up, you can do multiple things with them. They fill multiple tasks. And that, to me, when I'm teaching somebody how to pack a backpack for a trip, that's where the emphasis comes in, is I'm taking my saw with me because I can do this with it, I can do that with it. But at the same time, I can leave a few things behind. I can lighten the load a little bit because that saw is going to take care of that. I can trust that. I know it. I've tested it. And throughout the journey from that pivotal moment in my life to where I'm at today, it's been that process.
Yeah, I mean, I, what I heard you say was like, nothing goes to waste, even when there's a big turning point in your life. All the experiences and things that happened to you before is not wasted because you can draw upon those in your new direction of life. Um, and so no experience is wasted for sure.
I want to get into your experiences a little bit, and I want to talk about how you discovered this idea that works for you about lightening not only the physical pack, but the emotional pack as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it started my outdoor adventuring. Started when I graduated high school, 1976, and I thought it'd be a good idea. And I have no idea. Someone was asking me this the other day, like, what led up to me deciding to ride my bicycle 4,200 miles across the country? And I didn't have a good answer. I mean, I wasn't a particularly adventurous person in high school. I mean, I belonged to the outing club and things like that, but I, I can't tell you what possessed me to like think this was a good idea, but um, my mom was all in favor. She's like, "Yeah, go for it." And three friends came along with me, so that kind of started my outdoor adventuring, kind of serious outdoor adventuring. And when you're going to be riding a bicycle that far, you think about all the weight. And I, sewed myself a tarp. I had a little um, sold myself some gear, some other gear. Had a hammock that I used, one of the old nylon string hammocks to sleep in that summer, and that was the really the start of paying attention to what I was carrying on wilderness trips, backcountry trips, and then it really drove home when our oldest son Brian joined Boy Scouts, and you know, we joined an active troop, and the capstone backpacking trip was a week in the Sierra, which pretty substantial trip. And so I went down to all my childhood stuff I'd left on the East Coast. So we went down to the local REI and loaded up for this trip. And um, my pack leaving the trailhead on that first Sierra trek was over 70 pounds, fully loaded for a week. um, and contrast that. So today, all my base weight before food and water is generally under 5 pounds when I'm going on a trip. So I've done some significant work and thinking through the years, through the decades, on how to light my pack and what is really essential um, for a particular trip in the backcountry. And I've tried to apply that in other areas of my life too. Probably none as quite as successfully as I have in the backpacking realm. Um, as you can, I mean, you can tell I got stuff on the shelves behind me and things like that. But um, still, not having all the possessions you need, realizing being grateful for what you have, and realizing how little you actually need um, to be healthy and happy in the backcountry and in life.
That last statement, it really resonates because I remember that life-changing moment and being so angry and so unwilling to accept it. Months later, I finally, sat down and I picked up a handful of grass and I sat there and I thought about where I had found myself in the progress of that 3 months. And it brought a smile to my face, but more importantly, it brought all those negative feelings to start coming up. All that stuff that was weighing me down and stopping me from really making the progress I was hoping to make. And after about 20 minutes, I sat that grass back down on the ground and I started to feel a little bit different. I started to feel a little bit lighter, as well as this connection with the support that was sitting underneath my feet. And that was one of those moments that I started to realize that all those shiny things and all those excess things that we're chasing in life don't truly bring the worth or the value we think they do to us internally. It's what comes up when we go through the challenges. That's where that value and that worth really comes up and sticks. And then a few months later, I was introduced to the idea of meditation after arguing with the counselor about it for an hour. I went out and inc- started doing my normal nightly target practice, realizing she's right. You know, meditation is all around us. It's things that we do. And it's just the simplicity of things when you quiet everything down that can be the genesis of not only a transformation, but also finding that direction in your life that you're meant to walk.
Yeah, you talk about, quieting everything down, and that's, meditation is one way to do that. Um, but and I think, getting away from life into the woods helps with that because so much of that stuff goes away. And there's nothing like time in wilderness with minimal gear to reinforce to you, um, how little we need. Um, it's so easy to get caught up in the traps when we're here about, oh, I could use a nicer camera or a better car or a bigger house or, things my neighbor has or things that I see on social media that people have. And, it's nothing like you were just, in the woods in a hut on the ice fishing and having a good time with very little stuff. And it's, you realize, gosh, I really don't need that much stuff. And so even I think you can carry that forward even when you have some of that stuff that it doesn't have a hold on you, because you realize, sure, it's nice to have, but it's not necessary. We have a adventure van, and we let other people use it, and you know, people are astounded. It's like, really? You would lend out like $100,000 van to people? And it's like, it's just stuff. What's, yeah, they could wreck it. But again, it's just a thing. It's just stuff. It's not something that really matters.
It's that, really to me, what I've discovered is the fact that it's the core principles. There's the essentials we have to have. And when you have those essentials in order and you've found balance within your life, everything else that you think you need, you can create.
Yeah, and when you've been through, hardship, kind of crucible experiences like you have, and we've had some times like, the birth of a disabled son and the death of a son. I was almost killed in a plane crash. And when you go through things like that, it gives you kind of new perspective on what's important and, what are the things that really matter.
And, as we're talking and as I'm thinking about things through a lot of the interactions that I have in the daily world, a lot of the time people think about getting out on these adventures as an escape. You know, you can look at even Daniel Boone and his journey. It, a lot of people reference that as an escape. He was just didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. But, magical things come out of that. And when you change the self-talk that's going on in your head around it, you take the labels off it, you open yourself up to that same kind of freedom, that same kind of magical exploration that is going to benefit your journey. It's going to make you Find avenues to improve yourself in a comfortable level at your pace that are going to stick and be lasting.
Yeah, and those, I mean, the time in wilderness, I think with Daniel Boone, I mean, sure, yeah, he spent a lot of time kind of in the bush, but he also was a community leader, and he was effective in a like a civilized role. But I think part of it was the lessons that he learned in wilderness. I have a friend, John Mackey, the co-founder of Whole Foods Market, and when he was running Whole Foods, he would spend 6, 8 weeks a year hiking on the Appalachian Trail. Um, and he was obviously very successful in civilization, running a huge company, building it up. But part of what allowed him to do that was the time away. And that wasn't escape from his quote responsibilities. That was to give him the tools to be better at his responsibilities. Um, and it was just to give him clarity when you didn't have the daily meetings and things like that. He shared with me once that his leadership team at Whole Foods, whenever he came back from, he's gone a month on the Appalachian Trail, they were always a little nervous because he'd come back and he'd have some clarity about something. It's like, okay, everyone's got to be healthy that works here because that's what we're preaching. Um, and so we're going to help people do that. There were often like moments of clarity and initiatives that came out of his time on the trail.
Which, is a great example of something that a lot of people put on their shoulders is there's no time for something like that. We can't
Exactly.
give ourselves grace to actually incorporate self-care into our routine, whether it's just 10 minutes out of the day or it's a couple weeks on a trail. So, hearing a story like that, it really makes you stop and say, maybe it's okay for me to do it too. And the answer to that is yes, it is.
Yeah, it's more than okay. It's probably necessary. Um, and you mentioned self growth, and definitely, time spent by yourself, I think, is important. But the other cool thing about wilderness, so John Mackey likes to he likes to walk, basically hike, and he likes to do it with people that are good company. And so I've done many trips over the years with John and his friends, and it's while it's valuable to spend time by yourself, and certainly on his trips, there's certainly plenty of time walking by yourself. Relationships are an important thing that also take time and energy, and that we often don't have time for or make time for in life. Um, Mike, I might call you up and say, "Hey, it's been a long time. Let's grab coffee or something." And then, an hour maybe is up, and you say, "Oh, I got to get to a podcast," and I say, "Oh, I got to get back to work or whatever." Um, in an hour, you don't really get a chance to, you can catch up kind of on the surface of what's happening, but you don't get to get below the surface and talk about things that matter, things that we're wrestling with, or um, things that are on our radar. But when you're walking all day, I've been walking with someone and a subject will come up and they'll say, "Oh, that's a long story," um, which normally is like saying we don't have time for it. But if you're walking all day, it's like, well, we've got all day. So go ahead, tell the story and let's see where it goes. That's another great thing about being in wilderness with others.
I use that a lot when I go on hikes with people. Because I get to work with a lot of people that are kind of entry level into the outdoor experience. So they feel like, it's always that rush here, rush there thing from the concrete world. And you get out there and you start walking and you realize there's nothing else to do but talk and build these connections, find this understanding and share wisdom back and forth. And, you really remove that superficial level of a lot of the relationships and connections that we have in the world where you find that growth. And it's a very powerful and amazing thing to not only foster but to be a part of the experience.
Yeah, and one thing that I enjoy about wilderness, I find, for me, it's like kind of the third. Sometimes it takes 3 days to, I forget about the to-do list because I can't do anything on it anyway. And to just be present, and that's a gift. To be like, there's the only thing you have to do is it's like figure out where we're going to sleep tonight, where's the next water, and when am I going to stop to eat. I mean, the decisions you need to make come down to very, very few, which gives you plenty of bandwidth for having discussions and thinking about things and talking to other people and just really being present.
I was just going to equate that to the idea of building a water filter because you have all of this mess going on when you get out there. And it may take a couple of days, like you said, to let it all wash and trickle down into the cup. But when it gets there, that's where the magic is because that's where all the new ideas, the new innovations, and new perspectives really come from. Is through putting the actual effort out there to get on a trail, to get into nature, connect with not only the world around you, but also with whoever may be in the group. And there's nothing negative that can come out of it. It's just a matter of being prepared for whatever the trip may be and working it at your own pace. And that's something that, again, a lot of people are afraid of and struggle with is going at your own pace.
Yeah, that's seems like in so much of life you're forced or expected, or you have the expectations of yourself to go at someone else's pace. Someone else sets the criteria, the amount of work that has to be done, or how many hours you have to work, what has to be accomplished. But yeah, when you're in the backcountry, it's like time kind of stretches. I mean, if you feel like doing 5 miles, you can do 5 miles. If you feel like walking 30 miles, you can walk 30 miles. It doesn't, uh, it's whatever you want to accomplish and whatever you need to accomplish.
And I think, when I take people on a hike, at the very end of it, I kind of really start to focus on the fact that even though I was leading the hike, you still had to discipline yourself enough to get through the hike. You had to raise yourself up to the adversities and all the challenges. And for a lot of the people that I hike with, it's actually a very important building block because it's helping them to overcome something or reach something new in their life where they had no confidence. They didn't think they had the skills and the ability to do that.
Yeah, it it helps them to realize that they can meet whatever challenges come up. You don't always know what they are, but you can look back and go, well, I went on that trip with Mike and I didn't know how I was going to do that, but that worked out okay. And somehow all the challenges came up. We figured out a way around them. So they can draw on that for future challenges.
That's the most beautiful part about any outdoor adventure is that grip and grin moment you can look back on and say, I did it. I can do it right here. I can do it right now. And
Yeah.
Glenn, as our time starts to wind down, I want to give you time to do all that self-promotion stuff, talk about the book, what you got going on, coming up, how people can work with you, reach out to you, all that.
Well, thanks for that. It's funny you mentioned self promotion. That's been like the hardest part of writing a book is uh, doing self promotion because it's not something I like to do. I am donating all profits from the book to the Pacific Crest Trail Association, so I'm not going to make a dime from it. But um, best way for people to get a hold of me is through my website, glenvanpeski.com. And there's all sorts of resources there. I do a fortnightly blog. They can read those. They can sign up for a newsletter. Um, I've got gear lists there, trip reports, videos, things like that. And there's information on the book there. They can buy it anywhere you buy books, basically. Also, there's an audiobook available, and it's available as an ebook. Um, so yeah, That's
Beautiful. So I usually don't go through the effort to do this in the video. I do it normally post-production, but that's the book right there. If it picks it up,
yeah, it's
take
going into the
less and do
background
more.
there.
Yeah, take less and do more. It's a great read. I definitely suggest you jump out and grab a copy of it. Glenn, thank you for sitting down with me here at the campfire. It's been a blast. I'd love to collaborate sometime down the road with you.
That'd be great. Sounds good. I'm always on the lookout because one of the things I'm finding about the book is some people pick it up who aren't really backpackers, and they appreciate the life lessons in the book, but it kind of the unintended consequences, it makes them like, gosh, I maybe like to get into backpacking. And I'm a bad resource for that because for me, I don't remember what it was like to start backpacking. It was too long ago. And so I'm always on the lookout for people like that I can connect them up to. It's like, okay, if you're starting from zero, here's a person that can walk alongside you and kind of teach you the basics and get you out there. So it's always good to meet people like that.
Definitely. It's all about building a community. I find I have the same thing going on where originally the goal was to be the voice of mental health within the outdoors because it's a subject nobody talked about. But the byproduct is I've started to reach or be reached out to by all these people outside the community that want to come in. So it's fun. It's a nice little balance to have. And, any way that we can help out and support each other, it's a beautiful thing. It's a necessary thing. And I don't, to end the conversation though, today, I don't believe in goodbyes or two finals. So whether we meet again this life or the next, I wish you a safe and prosperous journey, my friend.
Thank you. Until next time.